Hello and welcome, friends, to another episode of Vintage Collectible Fountain Pens. Today I have for you my latest acquisition. As you see in my first video unboxing, we have here a KAWECO Sport and the number is 12, which means that this fountain pen was made in the beginning of the 1950s, approximately 1953. Indeed, it was made in 1953 because I already have a fountain pen, and maybe you saw its review. It's one of my first review, the same KAWECO Sport, and the model you can see here is 12 and the nib size is OM. So you may ask yourself, why did I buy a second KAWECO Sport number 12? Well, I bought this fountain pen because it is my favorite KAWECO Sport of all times, and I say that because this fountain pen has an interesting opened nib and this ink window. You can't see its color. It's a greenish color, a green color. This is filled with ink, but you can certainly see its ink windows on this model. You can see it has this green color ink window together with the opened nib. I initially had an oblique medium and I fell in love with oblique gold nibs. And this time it is a rarer OBB, so oblique double broad nib. And let's do a little comparison between an oblique medium nib and an oblique double broad nib. Let's zoom, and I hope you can see. So, on the bottom, we have the oblique medium nib, and on the top, we have the oblique double broad. So you can see on the point of the nib, you can see that it is inclined here. This is the OBB nib, and here oblique medium nib. They are quite beautiful examples of gold nibs. Probably the KAWECO nibs of this period are my favorite ones because they are certainly at a high level of craftsmanship, and they are similar to the quality of the gold nibs of Mont Blanc from the 50s, but of course you can find them at reasonable prices. Okay, this is the old fountain pen, and let's concentrate on this fountain pen. Of course, it is all made out of celluloid, and I love the faceted shape of the cap. You can see it has lots of faces, and interesting, you can see the breathing holes, and these are common to the fountain pens of the 1950s. Their role is to regulate the pressure of the nib, so you avoid spilling ink from the nib. Another interesting element of this fountain pen is this logo. And this logo was made in the factory by KAWECO because it was delivered to this firm. And I've looked for this firm, this German firm, and I find out that the O and K logo comes from Orenstein and Koppel, which was a major German engineering company specializing in railway vehicles, escalators, and heavy equipment. Unfortunately, this firm, which was established in the 19th century, it doesn't exist anymore. But this personalization was quite common for the KAWECO Sport model of the 1950s. And some KAWECO Sport models had the personalization directly on the barrel, and the other ones, like this one, you can see the personalization is done directly on the leather etui. This is a German firm from the field of mining coal. I have another KAWECO Sport from the 1960s that is personalized also on the etui. Of course, some rarer models were personalized even on this keychain. On this is KAWECO and Sport, and on the other one we have KAWECO and KAWECO Sport. But this one is personalized directly on the barrel. And returning to our fountain pen, I must tell you that I paid a reasonable sum of money for it, and I'm grateful to the seller, also a collector, because it gave me the opportunity to own my first oblique double broad nib, and I paid for it only 285 lei, which means I paid only 59 euros or 69 American dollars. A beautiful, beautiful celluloid model. And I already told you that the cap unscrews. Let's look for a minute at the cap. It has these faceted sides to it. It has imprinted and painted in gold KAWECO Sport. At the end, we have the logo, as you see, KAWECO, and some wheels surrounding it with teeth, you can see. We have this gold trim here, like a small ring. And interesting, I wanted to show you that this part is reinforced with this metallic ring. So it is a quite useful feature because lots of the user will cap this fountain pen because it is quite short, and you will see what I mean when I will do the writing sample. Let's look for a bit at the beautiful KAWECO nib. We have KAWECO, the logo, 14 karat and 585. On the back we have this beautiful ebonite feed. Because it is filled with ink, I will only show you that it has a blind cap and it is operated by a piston filler. This is our little fountain pen, and why not? I have another fountain pen, and this is a set. It contains a mechanical pencil and a fountain pen, and I want to show you this model. This is called the V12 oblique medium nib. V comes for the fact that we have a hooded nib, and this is the model from the end of the 50s and the beginning of the 1960s. You can see on the side we have 14 karat, and on the other side 585. I hope you can see. Yes, we have 585. Let's zoom, and you can clearly see the 585. Okay, I wanted to show you this pen from the 1960s. Of course, the piston filler remains the same. The color of the ink window becomes blue. You saw that on the Model 12 we had that green fountain pen color. Interesting fact about the ink window from the early models of the 1950s. If you shine on them in the dark with the artificial light, you would see that that green window becomes like a brown color. You see this green on our KAWECO 12 OM. So this green, and let's put it to the light, And you can see even at the natural light that the green becomes brown. Look, you can see the brown. Maybe you can't see it, but I will do some pictures with the green and the brown. I don't know why it changes its color this way. It has to do with the material used. Let's put this aside. Of course, I have other fountain pens in my collection from KAWECO, and I will surely do a short presentation. This is a model from 1937, a KAWECO original 52. Let's show you also the beautiful nib. And let's see what we have. A KAWECO DI802G, also from the 1950s, also with the blue ink window, also with a wonderful 14 karat gold nib. And I have an intruder, but not quite an intruder because it's also a German classic. We have a model Shonaken, and I believe it's the model 101, if I'm not mistaken. This time with a steel nib, also with a brownish ink window. But this time we don't have a blind cap, but we have a full working piston filler. And let's see what we have here. We have a KAWECO Dia in an interesting color. Let's call it a gray color. Also a V3, and V stands for hooded nib. Interesting, quite rare oblique F nib. This is an interesting nib, and you don't see it very often. I'm not a big fan of the hooded nibs, but this type of nib is quite rare. And I want to zoom to show you the end of it. You can see the slightly difference that is characteristic of an oblique nib. And a top of the line product, KAWECO, but not any KAWECO. This is a Sonderklasse. KAWECO Sonderklasse, which means that this type of KAWECO was the highest type of KAWECO, the equivalent, if you know, of a masterpiece from Mont Blanc. This is the medium size, 685, with the EF nib. And not only a gold nib, but a two-tone gold nib. Beautiful gold nib. And this was my short presentation. Of course, bear in mind that also a green ink window, and let's see if we have some natural light. No, but you can see that the trend of going brown. Look at it. So it means that the KAWECO Sonderklasse used the same materials as the KAWECO Sports of the early 1950s. Let's put the packages aside. Let's put the etuis aside, one and the second one, because I want to do the writing sample, and I have prepared my notebook. Let's take them gently because I don't want to scratch them. And let's repeat the procedure. So first of all, let's start with our KAWECO Sports 12 models. So I have here the 12 OM. So this is the first KAWECO Sport. I have here our KAWECO Sport, the fountain pen that I'm reviewing in this edition. Okay. And let's take them in their chronological order. So those are from the 1950s, and let's start with the oldest one that I have in my collection. This is the KAWECO Original 52. And this is a fountain pen from 1937. And let's continue with this time the Shonaken 101. This is a model from the 1940s. Okay. And we will continue with the KAWECO Sonderklasse. This is a model from, let's say, also the early 1950s, late 1940s. But no, you must know that Sonderklasse was a name used by KAWECO only between 1953 and 1958. At the beginning of 1950s, they used Meisterklasse, which you can see it's a similar word with Meisterstück, and maybe for that reason they replaced Meisterklasse with Sonderklasse between 1953 and 1958. So let's say that this is a model from 1953. Our KAWECO Sports 12 models are also from 1953. Let's say that the KAWECO 800 Dia 802G is from 1954, and those model of V12, I'm not sure, but I think they are from late 1950s, early 1960s. And we have a set. This is the fountain pen V12, and this is the mechanical pencil number 19, also KAWECO Sport. We end with the KAWECO V3 from 1961, and I know that for sure because I am proud to have its original case, its original papers, and it was sold by a stationery store in Germany, and they are still active on the market. So check out my KAWECO V3 review and you will see what I mean. Let's put this here. And now I will show them to you side by side. Of course, it isn't a fair comparison because the KAWECO Sports are pocket models, so they are small in comparison with the other types of fountain pens. But in fact, I will leave the dimensions on the screen and you can make an idea about their real measures. And of course, I will do the writing sample. So let's take the fountain pens aside, and we will remain with this beautiful fountain pen. For the ink that it is filled, I will use the Parker Quick Ink. It's quite a good lubricated ink, and I recommend it for vintage piston fillers. And you must know that the KAWECO Sports, the vintage KAWECO Sports, are quite fragile. So use them with care because they are meant to be used. But if you use them, please make it gentle because not more examples remain in the wild. And this is a real bargain. Look, first of all, look how small it is, and I promise you that I will show you on the writing sample. I can manage even with a large hand to write, but I will post it. Of course, you must be careful because it has that metallic ring that I've shown you. Let's see if I can show you again. It has a metallic ring that reinforces this fountain pen, and it is a possibility to scratch the barrel. I will use it the first time. Look, I'm using it posted. So I have a little zoom, but I will move the paper here. I wanted to show you how beautiful this writing instrument really is. So let's see. KAWECO Sport 12 from 1953. This is a beautiful, beautiful model with a OBB nib, a 14 karat 585 OBB gold nib. But not only a gold nib, but a semi-flex nib. And let's zoom. I want to show you full zoom. Okay. So please, please, please look at this. Look. You can see that it flexes. You can see its flex. A beautiful, beautiful semi-flex nib. And this is quite alright. Let's zoom out. Okay. I will do small line variation to see what I mean. Look. So you can see that we have an open nib and a semi-flexible nib. This is one of the reasons that I love opened nibs. You can have this slight flexibility to them, and this is a thing I like. Okay, so like I told you, this is a semi-flexible nib. Okay, let me show you how juicy it is. You can see some different line variations. Of course, being an oblique nib, look how thick this is, and look how narrow this is. This is a trait of the oblique nibs. So this was my review of a Grail fountain pen. For me, this is an ideal fountain pen. It has all the characteristics of a classic German fountain pens from the 1950s. A piston filler, although with a blind cap, no problem for me. An ink window, an opened nib, a beautiful semi-flexible gold nib, a nice looking simple ebonite feed. This concave ending of the grip section makes, and of course the celluloid material makes this fountain pen a real gem. So you know that I don't give many recommendations on my channel, but if you are new and you want to buy a vintage fountain pen, please consider buying a KAWECO Sport from the early 1950s with this open nib. And I assure you, you won't be disappointed. Of course, try to find out one that is restored, but you can't go wrong with this fountain pen, and you can thank me later for my suggestion. As always, I wish you to have a nice day. Thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping by and watching the review of this beautiful, beautiful little KAWECO Sport. If you like this review, please consider supporting me by subscribing to my YouTube channel. I will try to deliver new content each day with the vintage and the new affordable fountain pens. Thank you again, and bye-bye.